Welcome to another episode of the Film Florida podcast. I'm John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Thanks for downloading this episode of the podcast. The Florida Film Festival is one of the premier film festivals in the country. Matthew Curtis is the Director of Programming, and Tim Anderson is the Programming Coordinator. We talked to them about the Florida Film Festival being an Oscar qualifying festival, how the Florida Film Festival has evolved through the years, their favorite memories from previous years, and what to look for in this year's Florida Film Festival, April 9th through the 22nd in Central Florida. Before we get to our interview, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the Film Florida podcast. If you're not already a member, please consider joining Film Florida at filmflorida.org. Don't forget, we have a Film Florida merchandise page. Visit teespring.com/stores/Film Florida to purchase Film Florida t-shirts, sweatshirts, coffee mugs, and more. Now here's my conversation with Matthew Curtis and Tim Anderson from the Florida Film Festival. Welcome to the Film Florida podcast, Matthew and Tim.
Thanks. We're really happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So let's start with the basics. Matthew, you are the Director of Programming, and Tim, you're the Programming Coordinator for the Florida Film Festival. Those sound like really important titles, but what exactly do they mean? Matthew, you go first. Tell us what you do.
Well, as Programming Director, I kind of oversee every aspect of the programming of the Florida Film Festival and the Enzion Theater, by the way. And I am actually a full-time member of some of the selection committees, but have my hand in all of them and oversee all programming decisions. Rarely do I make a final decision or unilateral decision on my own. It's always informed by input and guidance and feedback from the rest of my committees. And we are definitely a team here, and couldn't do it without Tim.
And Tim, you go up. What's up with you?
Yeah, programming coordinator it's sort of like the frontline defense. Every film that's submitted to the festival comes through me. Anytime a film is accepted, anytime a film is not accepted, anything that goes wrong with the movie, all of that goes through me. All the filmmakers come through me, and then I oversee essentially the day-to-day, hour-to-hour operation of all of the members of the Florida Film Festival Selection Committee. So it's just a very, very large puzzle of moving pieces, just making sure everybody's doing their job, trying to get it done on time, because you're talking about watching thousands of movies in a window from essentially the 1st of September to the 31st of December.
And so when the lineup comes out, which one of you gets the praise and which one of you gets the blame?
Equal.
Yeah, a lot of blame, more than praise.
Yes, I would say so. But yeah, we are definitely involved in pretty much every programming decision that takes place with what makes up the guts of the Florida Film Festival.
Yeah, I kind of tell people that essentially what Matthew does is he has veto power, which he rarely pulls.
Correct.
So everything is pretty much a team decision, but there's a chance that no matter how many members of the team like it, Matthew could say, "Over my dead body," that movie won't play. But I can count on like less than a hand.
Correct.
Like the amount of times I've seen it happen.
Yeah. So now that we have a little bit of the grounding, the Florida Film Festival is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. Matthew, I believe you've been there for every single one of them, including the last 25 directly with the festival. Give us the history of the Florida Film Festival.
Yeah, that is correct. I've been at every single one, and came on board as a programmer early on in the early 90s. The first festival was 92, so we started to put it together in 91. And I think the festival was originally the brainchild of Philip and Siggy Tiki, and it was more of a reaction to another festival that was happening locally for a year or two. It was the original version of the Orlando International Film Festival. There is, I believe, a more modern incarnation of a festival with that title now, but it was the original version of the Orlando International Film Festival. I gather some people weren't so impressed with the way it happened, and just felt Enzian could do a better job at putting on an event like this. So they started very small. I think there was 6 to 8 of us on the selection committee. There was only 300 submissions, 40 something films totally, and all took place in Enzian only and in the summertime. And so it started out as very humble beginnings. And although they did get because it was the first year and there were some connections there were some, it had some glitz to it. They were able to attract some friends, personalities, people like Paul Newman and Oliver Stone, which was awesome, that they could do that and get that type of publicity. And it kind of grew from there. But the first years, every year I would say to myself, this is another little miracle that this is coming together and we're pulling this off, because you never knew from year to year. And the first 5 years I was on the programming team and wrote the program, the physical printed program. I don't even think we had, I don't know if everything was up on a website or not back then. It's so long ago. And then in 96, for the 97 festival, I became full-time programming director, and we took off from there.
And Tim, now there are a lot of film festivals out there today, but one thing that sets you off from all of them, not all of them, most of them, is that you guys are an Oscar qualifying film festival. What exactly does that mean?
Well, an Oscar qualifying film festival, the answer to it is simple. The path to get to it is much more complicated. Essentially, we are accredited in live action, animation, and documentary short subject. And if you win our grand jury award in any one of those 3 categories, you clear what's essentially the primary main hurdle to be nominated for the Oscar in the following season. Really, the only way to get nominated for an Oscar is to win a grand jury award. And then there's a few other sort of like paper humps to jump over, applications, things like that. But this is the key thing that you need. Yeah, there's probably a couple hundred festivals total in the world that have some level of the accreditation, be that live action or just animation or just documentary. But there's only, to our knowledge at this point, still only about 24 in the world that carry all 3 of the accreditations at one time. And we're very, very proud of that. And that allows us to see really the pinnacle of filmmaking in those categories each year. It's incredible, the submissions that we accept. It's incredible, I think, to a lot of people, the films that we can't even manage to get on the screen. We always say that sometimes we could have programmed the 10th through, or the 11th through the 20th, or the 21st, the 31st entry, and no one would know the difference in terms of the quality level. It's amazing.
Yeah, when Tim talks about accreditation, he's talking about from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences.
Yes, you're bestowed your accreditation after a fairly lengthy process, which requires an Academy member to sponsor you, letters of recommendation, proof of programming and awards history and jury history for a number of years. I think it's 5 now. I think it used to be 10, but it's a complicated process. The team that actually selects the Academy Award nominees in that category is the team that accredits you. So the other part of it that's problematic, I think, for a lot of festivals that have tried it before, is that you don't necessarily even have the same review committee every year, because if the documentary shorts selections team of the Oscars is entirely new from one year to the next and you've applied more than once, it's not like you get a lot of credit for making a better application than prior years. It's totally another group.
Yeah, and we were not accredited in all 3 categories simultaneously. No. It took a number of years. We were accredited first for live action, and then a few years after that, we were accredited for animation. One of the reasons was ignorance, basically. We were giving out at the time a special jury award for Best Animated Short every year without knowing that it had to be a grand jury award. And that was the only type of award the Academy would recognize.
Yeah.
So we kind of had to start that process over, changing the name to a grand jury award for Best Animated Short and have it prove a track record of excellence in that category before we finally got accredited. And then a number of years after that, maybe five years ago, we were finally accredited for which is the toughest one, for the documentary short subject category, which kind of made us, again, one of the few to have all three accreditations, which we're extremely proud of.
Yeah, to give you an idea of how difficult it is to get the documentary shorts accreditation, we got it one festival year earlier than Tribeca got it. So
Wow.
It is very hard to get that accreditation.
Wow, it's really cool that you guys have that. And for our listeners, for the sake of full disclosure, we were supposed to do this interview about the Florida Film Festival last year. We were scheduled to record on March 18th, and right before then, everything kind of blew up with the pandemic. So we put the interview on hold. And the Florida Film Festival didn't happen as planned in 2020, but it did actually happen. Matthew, talk about the initial postponement and the subsequent hosting of the film festival and how that all came about, starting at this time last year.
Yeah, it was March 17th. We decided to, we pulled the plug on the festival. We shut down the theater. It stayed shut down till June 12th. And when we announced, we never said the festival was canceled. We always said it was postponed because we always were confident, and we had this dream that we could do it later in the year. But we knew our cutoff before we had to start getting geared up for the 2021 festival, that it couldn't happen any later than August. So it was a big question mark because we were shutting down in March. Everything was locking down for minimum 30 days. And to get ready for an August festival, we decided we needed at least 8 weeks build up to that to find out what films we could still play that were accepted for the April festival, what films were being put on the shelf, what films were going to come out on, virtually and be available in April or May or June or whatever, that obviously we wouldn't be no longer interested in August. It was a complicated process. And we kind of made the call in early June, and the theater reopened June 12th. And then, sure enough, we were able to pull it off in August. We observed as strict safety precautions as you could possibly do. There was a great hesitancy, obviously, for a lot of the general public to come back to the theater and come indoors. But those that did come were extremely appreciative we were doing it. And we did a hybrid festival. Yeah. We did a festival that was both in person and virtual. And the in-person part, I believe we were either the first festival in the country, period, to do it, or the first major regional festival in the country to attempt it. Later in the summer, some festivals started doing hybrids with drive-in movies, but we're not aware of any other festival that did it with a hardtop theater where people had to come indoors to watch movies. So obviously the crowds were much smaller than normal. The theater capacity was lowered to less than 50%. But again, those that did come appreciated it so much. And the filmmakers that came, and there weren't a lot, but the filmmakers that did show up also were thrilled beyond belief, because this probably was going to be the only time their film was ever going to be shown on a big screen and viewed the way it was meant to be viewed. So that was exciting that we could pull that off. We had a lot more participation on the virtual side. It was once people figured out how that was going to work, but the combination worked better than we thought it would, and we were extremely proud to be able to pull off the festival and still be able to honor these filmmakers' work and get them shown to the public, to juries, etc.
And Tim, you and I spoke on a virtual town hall that we hosted just a little bit before then. And I remember your overall mindset was both excitement and pure fear of how it was all going to do, because you guys were the first ones, like you said.
Yeah, the pure fear was warranted. It went, as smoothly as it could. The system itself worked extraordinarily well. I mean, I think one of the things that people don't consider is that, to be able to decide we were going to do a film festival and then approximately in under 2 months, essentially be able to actually have it, meant learning how to build an entire virtual film festival from the ground up. Not to mention, as Matthew said, spending a lot of time emailing all of the directors of the 177 films, I think, that we ended up getting to play of the original 184 or so that was selected for the festival. And every one of those required a negotiation about, can we even put your movie on the internet? Because it's very much was a new ground to break, and a lot of filmmakers were very concerned about it. South by Southwest tried to do it themselves over the summer and sort of spectacularly failed, with almost all of their films deciding not to allow them to play them. Now, some of that had to do with the platform they were using. It's just not as simple as clicking Netflix on your Roku and watching movies. So I'm thrilled to death with the turnout that we had on the web. It was amazing. We got to record a lot of virtual Q&As with the filmmakers that did not attend. And that allowed us to put 50 plus directors on the screen. It also allowed us to do something pretty cool, which was that all those filmmakers and all those programs got to watch each other's films. And since we weren't limited to 10 or 15 minutes on the stage, we allowed a 45 to 60 minute Q&A where those filmmakers got to ask each other questions about their own work. And it probably unexpectedly or unplanned came off as being one of the probably most illuminating aspects of ever going to a Q&A on a shorts block in the history of the festival.
Yeah, we also had a virtual forum for the film Feeling Through, which ended up getting an Oscar nomination this year. So not this past week. So that was exciting as well. So it presented some new opportunities that in the long run, I think really paid off for us.
And now our conversation is really timely because the 2021 Florida Film Festival is coming up. Tim, tell us what we need to know.
Well, we have 164 films. They're playing inside the Enzian Theater. That includes 2 celebrity events. I'm going to let Matthew go into those in a little bit. But only 3 films besides those 2 celebrity films are not playing in the virtual festival. And that's our opening night film, Because of Charlie, the Sony Pictures Classics film, Truffle Hunters, and the midnight movie, Prisoners of the Ghostland. And those are distributor movies, and it was their decision to keep them off the internet for the most part, and we were happy to oblige. So, 99% of this festival is available online. We've got a lot more filmmakers that are planning to come in. Enzian is still sitting at 50% capacity. It's about 100 seats, socially distanced. We're checking temperatures. We are fogging the theater. We are cleaning like madmen. We have a brand new HVAC system with UV filtration that is supposed to destroy your bacteria and your viruses and your germs. Maybe it's going to disintegrate my personality a little bit. We'll see. I'm heartened by how incredibly smooth the Enzian has run. And it's because we've been doing it since last June. We're doing all of this stuff every single day. So it's not like we had in April, we're having a film festival and we're going to go take over an AMC or a Regal. Let's figure out how to do it. We're doing this job every single day of the week, every day of the year already. So this is an incredibly smoothly operating system.
And Matthew, the film festival is the April 9th through the 22nd, I believe. Now that we know the what and the when, what should we look for in terms of content? How many films, where they come from? Are there common threads in the submissions this year?
Yeah, as Tim mentioned, we have 164 films this year. They represent 31 different countries. They are as diverse as ever, actually. I think there's a lot of theme. Obviously, it's been a dark time, and it was a very dark year last year, and that's reflected in some of the programming. We try not to overdo it, but it's hard to avoid. So there are films with apocalypse themes, dysfunctional family themes, sexual trauma themes, but there's also a kind of a much greater representation of LGBTQ themes, films dealing with disability, films dealing with sexuality, masculine and trans feminine themes. So it really touches on everything a normal festival does. And I just think we tried to mix it up as best we could and provide something for everybody in the community like we always do.
And Tim, every film festival has their hook. And we talked about the Oscar qualifying category that you guys have. But besides that, what is the Florida Film Festival's hook? What are you most known for?
I mean, the festival has sort of an industry reputation, a community reputation as the film festival with a heart. And I know that kind of a vaguity or platitude just sort of seems like intangible. What it really means to me is that this festival is a festival that celebrates film. When we talk about film as art and celebrating 30 years of film as art, to me, movie making is this incredible thing where all of these divergent jobs come together to create this one piece of cinema. You know, music does that to a degree, but this has so much more. And this festival celebrates that, and it celebrates the filmmakers in a way that I don't see happen necessarily at some other festivals, be them film festivals that are the same size as us, or obviously festivals that are much, much larger. And that's the barrier between the audience and the filmmakers is very thin. You've been to NZN, you know, there's a bar out front. Filmmakers shockingly like to drink. You've kind of got to get past the bar to get in the theater. You know, once you leave the theater, there isn't a whole lot of lobby. So you're sort of like by design forced to be interacting with each other.
Mm-hmm.
But the filmmakers that I talked to that come to Florida continually tell us that it's just one of the best times they ever have at on their festival runs, that the audiences are so appreciative, that they're so smart, they're so tuned in to filmmaking, they're so celebratory of the process. And just to meet the people and hang out with them and talk about that shared love of movies is something you just don't necessarily see at festivals where the filmmakers are shuffled in and out of their Q&As and are sort of like not around. Our filmmakers are hanging out at the bar, they're going to the parties, you know, they're walking around the theater watching other movies. And that has included over the years celebrities that have just stayed around or come back to the festival when they weren't even having movies here and watched movies in theaters. And Gabriel Byrne was sitting at the Regal Cinema behind some person who was literally tweeting out, I'm like at a movie and Gabriel Byrne's sitting behind me, and then he would hang out in the lobby and talk to everybody. And he had no movie at the festival. He had no reason to be here. He'd just been here in the past and had a good time. So to me, that's the hook. The thing you hear about the Florida Film Festival when you go out into the industry is the filmmakers submit movies to us because their friends have played this film festival. And those friends have told them that, like, if you're going to give a festival $50 to look at your movie, give your money to the Florida Film Festival because it was the best time we had. And that, to me, is greater than anything else. That's the highest praise that we can get.
I think the vibe of this festival is really special. And it's always been somewhat informal and casual. People feel comfortable, both the filmmakers and the audience. And we've never been a huge business festival. People are not cutting deals. There's not that pressure. We have an industry presence, and we get great jurors with, you know, nationally recognized film critics and representatives from very cool specialty distributors and indie distributors every year. But this festival is not about business. It's about celebrating the filmmakers and their art and giving them an unbiased opinion of their movie and in this informal, casual setting. And I think you don't get that at a lot of other film festivals. There's a lot more pressure on filmmakers at other festivals to make deals or get representation, whatever it is. And you just don't get that in Florida. It's a totally different, really special feeling. And that's what we hear. I mean, the word of mouth on this festival, you know, you can't buy that. That's what kept us going all these years and keeps these incredible submissions coming year after year. It's because the reputation the festival has.
And it's difficult to have an intimate feeling, but grow to the sense, the volume and the size that you guys are now. I mean, it's when you go to a small, intimate film festival, it has a feel. When you go to a larger one, it also has a feel. But when I've been to the Florida Film Festival, you still have that intimate feeling but you guys have a lot more to offer than those smaller ones. And I've always been impressed with that part of it.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's partially, it's very concentrated. It's obviously last year and this year, we're back to our basics. We're back to Enzian only. But normally we have a couple screens down at the Regal, 3/4 of a mile down the street. But it's kind of very self-contained. None of our venues are monsters. The biggest one is, the Regal was like around 250, and Enzian in normal times holds 200, and in these times holds about 100. So that all adds, I think, to the intimacy of the event.
Yeah, one of the things that I think about Florida that is able to draw that line is that, Matthew says we're not a business festival, but that's not to say that nobody's ever bought a movie out of Florida before.
Correct. Yeah.
And, those juries do represent, Magnolia, A24, Neon, Amazon, IFC. So because of our reputation in the industry, it allows us to be able to have the kind of side events and things like that maybe smaller regional festivals don't have, because it's not about throwing the money at the events to make them happen. I mean, we're a nonprofit, and man, that means a whole new thing in 2020 and 21 than it ever did before. But being able to put together, screenwriter panels with, the writer of Words on Bathroom Walls that came out last year, the creator of Child's Play, or put together an animation panel with two-time Oscar nominee Bill Plimpton, and Bernardo Brito has won a couple of grand jury awards at Sundance. That's all because people really respect us in the industry, and we can make the kind of phone calls that will get those people to come to this festival. And you can't, like Matthew said, you can't buy that. I guess actually technically you can, but it would cost you tens of thousands of dollars to do it. And we're buying it with our reputation.
And Matthew, as we talked about, this is the 30th year of the film festival, of which you've been around the entire time. How do you see the film festival has evolved through the years?
Well, obviously, I mentioned when we started, it was kind of this ragtag little engine that could kind of group of people and film lovers that just wanted to do an event and see if they could pull it off. And I think over the years, it's gotten to be somewhat of a well-oiled machine where they hired everybody that has a responsibility at this festival. And we are still an incredibly small staff for the amount of films we do and the amount of attendees we have. Everybody is so passionate and organized about what they do that I think every year it's just gotten better and better. And certain aspects of the festival has changed. 2 years ago, we added a fifth domestic shorts program. This year, we added a third live action international program because the things we were getting were tremendous and they were longer. They were all 20 to 30 minute shorts, and you can only fit so many of those in a couple of programs. So we kind of try to adapt to the times, and depending on what the pool of submissions is, we try to be flexible that way. When I started as programming director for the 97 festival, which was, I guess, the sixth one, I think that was the first year we had a midnight shorts program. I believe that might have been one of the first midnight shorts programs in the country at any festival. And now there are many, many festivals across the US and in the world that part of their programming is to have a midnight shorts program. Yeah. So we've grown a number of submissions and we've grown a number of attendees, but they've been very small, carefully planned steps. We never took too big a bite from one year to the next because we know what we're comfortable doing. We know what we do well. We know what the community responds to and the industry responds to. It feels like we've gotten to 30 years. We still have a good reputation that we're doing something right. So.
And Tim, in your time with the film festival, is there a year or an event or a moment that stands out to you as something special you always remember?
Yeah. So my history of the festival is interesting. The first festival I ever attended was 1997. This was Matthew's first as the programming director. So I've never attended a Florida Film Festival that wasn't directly his fault.
There you go.
So to speak. But in 2010, Matthew asked me to join selections team, and I did that for a couple of years before becoming programming coordinator in 2015. There's been so many incredibly unique moments to me at this festival over the years, but the one that is mine is sort of a cheat in that it happens all the time. And I don't think that anybody becomes a film programmer that doesn't love movies like at a degree that's like psychotic. Your whole life and career around this idea of celebrating the people that make these movies and getting to show their work on the big screen. And so to me, the moment is whenever I'm at a movie during the festival with a director that's having their world premiere with us. It doesn't have to be the world premiere, but it just tends to happen the most when we're first time ever showing this filmmaker's work on the big screen and they're seeing it on the big screen for the first time. And it's emotional. It's just like this incredible feeling of accomplishment, not only for them, but for being just this tiny little, seemingly insignificant part of their future. And then to follow that filmmaker's career forever. So when they get Oscar nominations or they get their new movie gets to world premiere at Sundance and they win a grand jury award there. I mean, all of these things have happened to people that have sat next to me in the theater watching their movie potentially for the very first time with an audience. And that's worth every hour I don't sleep, like for 9 months of the year, like just that one time that it happens. And happily, it gets to happen half a dozen or more times every year during the festival. So.
That's very cool. Matthew, how about you?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. Back in '98, a very fine documentary filmmaker, Paul Devlin, made really the first film about slam poetry before most people knew what slam poetry was. And it was called Slam Nation. We played it in competition. And one of these slam poets in the film, his name Bo Sia, was in the audience without the audience knowing that he was in attendance. And this film was so exciting. And, you know, people were exposed to this new art form that was like part poetry, part rap, you know, part R&B. It was incredible. And at the end of the film, as soon as the credits ended, the lights came up and Bo Sia ran out on stage unannounced. The audience had no idea. And he was greeted like a rock star. It was like Jagger ran out on stage or something. It was absolutely amazing to see. And that was just so gratifying and thrilling to see. And then he went in right into one of his routines and the audience went nuts. It was fantastic. And then another kind of quieter moment that always sticks with me is 3 years after that, the early 2000s, Kate Davis, one of the great documentary filmmakers in the country, whose work we've played many times over the years. We showed a film of hers that ended up winning our grand jury award called Southern Comfort, which was about a trans relationship and a trans masculine individual in rural Georgia who was dying of cervical cancer because all the doctors he would go to were afraid to treat him, afraid of their reputation. And he was just trying to live out one more year of his life to get to the Southern Comfort, which was a big gay ball in Atlanta, the Atlanta area. This film is a phenomenal documentary, and it won the grand jury award at Sundance as well. But Kate was at the festival. We were presenting it in competition. The protagonist, the subject of the film's parents, were seeing the film for the very first time. And Kate could not be in the theater to watch the movie again with his parents there. She just was so nervous and so emotional. And I sat with her outside. I think it might have been, I don't even know if Eden Bar existed at that point. We were just probably just sitting outside in the courtyard while the film was going on. And it was just such a special moment that I could be emotionally supportive to her, even though I kind of held her in awe of being this unbelievable filmmaker who just made one of the greatest docs I'd ever seen. And yet she was fragile and nervous. And it just was a special moment that has stuck with me for all the last 2 decades. And as I said, she has gone on to play many films at the theater, Pucker Up,
Born Into the Gig.
Yeah, Born Into the Gig, Jockey.
Yeah.
We've played many of her films over the years, and she's won the Grand Jury Award more than once. But that moment has stuck with me all these years.
There's a lot of instances of that. I mean, that's something that makes film festivals so different than going to a multiplex and seeing whatever big studio movie is happening at the time. It's that ability to like go to see a documentary and then have the subject walk out on stage, or spend a week here. I mean, there's been some incredible subjects of documentaries that have been in this festival in the last 10 years that I've been actively programming, that have passed away, and to have spent those hours or even days with them here is really powerful stuff. And, I see that on Facebook where just patrons of this festival will post a picture when someone is no longer with us and talk about seeing that film and talking to them about their movie. And that's why you come to film festivals. You get to see movies that you would never see anywhere else, but you also have that ability to meet the people that are making it. And we do a lot of fun stuff, like Matthew said, slam poets running on stage. We've got burlesque dancers. We've got drag queens. We've had foosball tournaments. We've had video games played with, the villains of the great video game documentaries overlooking your shoulder. And it's nuts. It's a party. It's a blast. So you've never come, my Lord, come to the Florida Film Festival.
Well, and Matthew, tell us about the opening night film this year.
The opening night film is going to be Because of Charlie. It's, as far as we know, the first feature film completed under all the new SAG pandemic guidelines.
Yeah.
It stars a lot of local talent. It's a comedy drama dealing with two estranged families who get together. Happens to be the weekend that Hurricane Charlie hit Central Florida, 2004, I believe, and they're getting together to throw an anniversary party. And it's a multiracial gathering of folks, and there's a matriarch of one family is Orlando's own Peg O'Keefe, and the patriarch of the other family is the legendary John Amos, the actor who's in Coming to America movies and Die Hard 2 and Roots and Good Times, and he'll be attending the festival like most of the cast and talent behind, and it's a world premiere, and we're really psyched to have the film. We think it's kind of fitting that it's the 30th year of the Florida Film Festival. It's really nice to be able to open with a Florida film, which we've done for the last 3 years anyway, but coincidentally. But
this year there's a really concentrated effort. The opening night film is Florida produced. The first film that opens the kind of multi-public viewings of the screenings on Saturday morning is a Florida film, and the final film on Thursday the 22nd in the 6:30 slot is a Florida-produced film shot on the Gulf Coast. We celebrate Florida as much as humanly possible in the festival, but it really felt like this is the year that we really wanted to pull out all the stops and give those spots to the films that deserve to be seen there. And Cause of Charlie is incredible because that's working. That's filmmakers putting their life on the line to a degree to make movies under all the new protocols. But they shot a feature film last summer in celebration, and we are beyond proud to be shown.
Yeah, and we actually have 32 films in the festival this year that have some Florida connection. And so it's nice to be able to arrange them in the festival so they're in key spots and kind of bookend the whole program.
And as an organization that promotes filming in Florida, we obviously appreciate that very, very much. And besides the Florida Film Festival, you all run the Central Florida Film Slam throughout the year. Tim, tell us what that is and where you're at coming out of the pandemic.
Well, Central Florida Film Slam is a continuation of Film Slam, which was started by the Downtown Media Arts Center in UCF about 16, 17 years ago, and has been hosted at the NZN for all but basically a year and a half of its existence. What we did is we rebranded to the Central Florida Film Slam, and it is a celebration of and showcase of local independent shorts films. We obviously have a lot of film schools in the Central Florida area. There's certainly some significantly phenomenal film schools in the entire state, from Ringling and Sarasota to, FSU and Tallahassee. And this is the opportunity for our filmmakers to get to showcase their movies on the big screen, perhaps for the first time, perhaps for the only time. One of the things that I always said when I was programming it full-time years ago, before taking a hiatus, was that this is often, it's very difficult for cast and crew to get a chance to see a short film play in a movie theater unless you're accepted into a film festival. And although we have our own film festival, and there are lots of others in Central Florida, not every movie just can get accepted to every film festival because of a finite number of programming slots. So we really look at that as a kind of incredible opportunity to showcase your work on the big screen for your friends, for your family, for your cast and your crew, and for our community. There's an audience award winner, and then from those 6 audience award winners, one of the films will come, all of the films come to the final selections committee of the Florida Film Festival, and we choose one to represent Central Florida Film Slam in the Florida Film Festival. And this year, that film was Short Shorts, which played in the January 2020 Central Florida Film Slam. One of only 3 of the 6 planned we were able to actually have. But it's an incredible film about a young Muslim girl and this kind of duality of her life between being in a conservative home and then going out with her teenage girlfriends and trying to be a little bit more wild, and how uncomfortable she is with her kind of foot in both worlds. Shot here in Orlando and over at Wekiva Springs State Park. It's a great movie. I really hope everybody comes to see it. It plays in the Sunshine and Swampland program, which is our Florida Shorts program that we're exceptionally proud of every year. And yeah, like I said, all the information on Central Florida Film Slam is available at nzn.org. And submissions are open 24/7, 365 days a year.
Yeah, we hope to get back to a bi-monthly schedule sometime soon.
Very soon. We did just have a Film Slam 2 weeks ago, and we're hoping that that is the first step in the momentum of having the next one on time.
And for those that want to learn more about the Florida Film Festival, the schedule, the films, where should they visit?
The website for the Florida Film Festival is www.floridafilmfestival.com. And we're also, you can look up you actually just go there, because the links to all the virtual stuff are all on that site anyway. So you can read everything about what's happening inside the theater. If you don't want to come out to the theater, if you're outside of the Central Florida area and you want to watch this anywhere in the state, basically the entire program is available anywhere in the state, and 7 of the films,
6
shorts programs are available nationwide. Then you can just click on the learn more about the virtual festival on there, and that'll take you over to eventive.org, which is our host for the virtual festival, and you can peruse the films and the availability there as well.
There's also a downloadable app that's active.
On the Android and Apple Store, Florida Film Festival, load it in, and you'll get an app that tells you everything.
Excellent. Well, Tim and Matthew, I really appreciate both of you taking time to visit with us today. I know you guys have a lot going on in advance of the film festival coming up, but thanks for being on the Film Florida podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Film Florida podcast. For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Check out the Film Florida merchandise at teespring.com/stores/Film Florida. And please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.